It was national news when Norfolk Southern freight train 32N derailed, releasing hazardous materials including vinyl chloride in East Palestine, Ohio on February 3rd.
They voiced the concern. I don't know if you recall, but that train ID was 32N. Crews have called that the 32 Nasty. N stands for nasty.
The I-Team decided to take a look at where 32N had been in the hours before the incident took place to determine if it had gone through central Illinois and had there been problems with the train earlier.
This was 100% preventable. We call things accidents. There is no accident.
They've, for the longest time, have been warning local rail management that this could be something that happens with this train.
According to the National Transportation Safety Board, 32N was a general merchandise train traveling from Madison, Illinois to Conroy, Pennsylvania. We have learned it stopped here in Decatur, Illinois on February 2nd in the massive NS rail yard. It's here where train crews started to voice concerns about this particular train. According to Union Representative Bob Guy of Smart Transportation Division, the union representing rail workers involved in the derailment.
The concern that the Decatur crews made me aware of and made local management aware of was the train makeup, specifically putting 40% of that train's weight in the rear third of the train.
So the first concerns were raised in Decatur the night before the derailment. Problems began to compound soon after 32N left the city. The crew left Decatur February 2nd, which was later than planned. It wasn't long after the train left Decatur that it had its first problem. The first problem? Here in Bement. An end-of-train device, or EOT, similar to this one, was not functioning properly, and the crew had to stop the train.
And that tells that crew on the head end that you have continuity throughout your train, air brake-wise.
After replacing the EOT, 32N resumed its trip. When the train was moving through Indiana, another problem. A knuckle which connects train cars broke, causing the train to separate, requiring the crew in the bitter cold late night to replace the knuckle. Again, the union raises the question of the train's weight as a potential cause. The evening of February 3rd, 2023 in East Palestine, Ohio, NS 32N comes to a stop after a hot wheel bearing is detected. When the train stops, the crew sees a fire as cars behind the locomotives derail. The union believes the weight of the train caused significant problems.
The front end of the train was mostly empties. Those cars' brakes were setting up far quicker than those rear cars. So those rear cars come rolling in while the front of the train is stopping more quickly. It takes a loaded car longer for the brakes to really take effect anyway. And here comes those heavy cars in the rear end. That's where you get the accordion-style derailments like we saw in East Palestine.
WAND News asked Norfolk Southern for a response to several of our findings, but the company stated most of those questions are still under investigation by the NTSB. However, on the weight issue, Norfolk Southern says the weight distribution was uniform throughout. It went on to say a mid-train locomotive, similar to this one, was in place helping to manage the dynamic forces of the train.
I am terribly sorry for what has happened to this community. It's been a devastating event. Norfolk Southern is committed to the recovery of the East Palestine community.
Congress is looking at imposing a number of reforms, including restricting the length of trains. We asked Illinois Senator Dick Durbin if restrictions on train length is something Congress should do.
But if you have some flammable liquids, and particularly those that could be dangerous if they do catch fire, I think the consideration of the train length becomes very relevant.
On April 13th, 3 burned-out tankers marked with NTSB holds came back through Decatur on flat cars. In late April, the Federal Railroad Administration issued a safety advisory encouraging railroads to address the complexities of operating long trains. For the I-Team in Decatur, Doug Wolfe, WAND News.